very interesting road trip today. We stopped here at the Oasis and we're heading for the border of Panama. We want to see what's happening with the migration and the open border. And this Oasis is where we're having breakfast. And over here we'll cross a bridge that goes across the Claro River, and that is the direction going into Panama to the border. Okay, you see we're heading to Rio Claro, Golfito, this direction, and this is on the way to the border. As we drive along here, I want to play one of the reports he put together with Tim Ballard. Tim Ballard did the Sound of Freedom. So this is part of his testimony before a congressional hearing. So as we drive, I'm going to have this so people can hear it.
September 13th, 2023. Full House Committee on Homeland Security testimony of Tim Ballard, Sound of Freedom. About 85,000 children unaccounted sold into child sex trade. More profitable than cartel illegal drug
laws from the government, and I think the way to deal with it.
Let me ask it this way.
So I don't know that they're missing.
I appreciate that. So we find that 100 went to one home. 100. You think that's reasonable?
We certainly don't want to see child exploitation. I don't know enough about the specific facts, but
That's
to
fair.
the extent that steps can be taken to stop child exploitation, we certainly want those steps to be taken.
That's fair. Well, we'll be watching to see, because I think if you really do take on both parties' administrations, this one would be a good one for you guys to look into, because they removed the background checks from the sponsors of these children, and we find in Austin, Texas, where 20 and 30, and the New York Times found where kids were being forced labor in our country. Mr. Ballard, I interrupted you earlier. I think you were going to talk a little bit about how the policies are facilitating human trafficking, and I'd like to give you the rest of my time to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's very disturbing to me because I know how the United States does deal with children. For example, how they should and how they have. I adopted 2 children from Haiti that we had rescued in an operation in February 2014. And I went through a major vetting process. I rescued the kids and I had to be vetted, and I was happy to be vetted. Home studies, background checks, fingerprints, over and over and over again. And I was grateful that the United States government did this. The same would happen to a missing child or an unaccompanied child that showed up by himself or herself in New York City or Washington, D.C. They would be treated like the precious children of God that they are. My question for the administration would be, why don't you treat these foreign children the same way? Why would you let them come in with no vetting, very little to no vetting? And it's not that the number.
To be clear, we're talking about the vetting of the sponsor who takes those children, right?
Correct. It's more difficult to adopt a cat from a shelter in the United States than it is to go down and take one of these children out of the custody of HHS and claim that I'm the sponsor. There's no background checks. There's no fingerprinting. Why would you afford a foreign child much less protection than you would an American child? I think it's despicable, frankly.
Thank you. In my time.
The human toll that's happening at our border, in the name of politics, in the name of an open border, the human suffering that continues to happen in the United States. 85,000 children, at least, that are unaccounted for.
Chair, at this time recognizes Representative Call for 5 minutes of question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ballard, thank you for being here and all the witnesses. Ms. Snodgrass, I'm so sorry to hear about your son's passing. And we're hearing these stories way too much, way too frequently. I was a federal prosecutor many years. I was chair of this committee. HSI does some great work. And the movie Sounds of Freedom, very moving, and especially God's children are not for sale. They're not. And what we see with the trafficking is it's one of the worst sins that I've seen in my lifetime, where children are property and they are trafficked. And I want to thank you for your heroism and the job you did to save those children. The problem is we have more children now trafficked than ever before. Would you agree that this is probably one of the worst human trafficking events of your lifetime?
Absolutely.
Right now?
Absolutely.
On day one, this administration rescinded a policy that was working. It was called Remain in Mexico. And you know how political asylum works. They couldn't touch base in the United States. There was no catch and release. 85% don't qualify, 15% do, and it worked. On day one, it's rescinded. Guess what happens? The floodgates. And every Border Patrol agent I talk to, I'm from the great state of Texas, will tell you that there was a direct cause and effect. But it's not just human trafficking. Now we have almost 100,000 deaths due to fentanyl, which unfortunately Ms. Snodgrass knows only too well. Have you ever seen anything worse from an opioid epidemic in your lifetime?
No.
What's worse is when the kids get here, guess what? They have no legal status. So where do they go, Mr. Ballard? The women, the girls, where do they go?
They have to be released to HHS, where they wait for any sponsor to come and pick them up and take them home.
And a lot of times these sponsors have maybe 15 different children. And guess what they're doing? Sex trafficking. They're bringing it now inside the United States of America. And guess what? Where do the young boys typically go? They don't have a home. Maybe they have a sponsor, but guess what happens to them?
Well, they're exploited, labor, sex, any kind of exploitation is available, and they have no name, number, no identity. They are the perfect victim of any kind of exploitation within this country because no one even knows they exist.
The perfect victim, both the girls and the boys. And the boys, I would argue, go to MS-13 where they got to pay back their debt to the cartels. This is a racket, and it's sanctioned by this administration. In fact, it was created by this administration. Would you agree with that?
The policies absolutely made this possible. Absolutely.
The policies. You know, now as a federal prosecutor, there's aiding and abetting, complicit with an offense. Would you consider these policies to be aiding and abetting the criminal conduct that we're seeing?
Absolutely, especially since the administration has been told and warned and told again that that's what they're doing, and if they continue doing it, absolutely,
clarify, it is
absolutely
the Biden administration.
And Secretary Mayorkas knows better. I've known him for a long time.
Since coming into office.
I worked with Jay Johnson. He was a U.S. attorney like I was in a border state of California. He knows exactly what he's doing, but he's disregarding the truth, and he won't change the policy that's causing so much harm and destruction to this country. Would you say that Secretary Mayorkas is complicit with the human trafficking, with the fentanyls, with the sex trafficking, with the deaths?
Because I've seen him be questioned in hearings, both Senate and House, and I know that he now knows because I've seen it. I have to say, unfortunately, yes, that he would have to be complicit in it.
Have you ever seen the death rate higher than it is today of people just trying to get to the border?
Never. It's never been this high.
Because there's so many of them.
There's so many.
Because we're open for business. That's a sign the administration put on the border. We're open for business. Come on in. Come on in. And once you touch base in the United States, guess what? Catch and release. My first bill in Congress 20 years ago, end, catch and release. And guess what? We're back to it again. It's a failed policy. It doesn't work. We finally had it fixed. And then this administration comes in and they screwed it all up. And it comes at a high price. Too many people are dying from overdose. Ms. Snodgrass, my heart goes out to you. My children have been to 5 funerals already of their friends. Too many human trafficking cases. And we just opened up the United States to be a big criminal conspiracy network. Is that correct, Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
I see my time's expired. Thank you so much. And I appreciate all of you. And Mr. Ballard, thanks for the job you have done.
Thank you, sir.
Gentleman yields. I now recognize Mr. Magaziner for his 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Chairman. We do have a humanitarian crisis at the border. And the way you deal with a humanitarian crisis is with humanity. Not with cruelty, not with political posturing, with humanity.
Through those trees. He landed there, and I waited right here on this road for him to pass by me. And Mayorkas went into this camp here, San Vicente. That was April of 2022, and I was droning it when he went in. And so I've got that footage, and I put up the footage when he came this year in May, side by side, and you can see this camp is remarkably bigger, at least twice as big now. And this is just one camp. There's many camps in Panama. This place is growing. There goes some of the buses right there to go pick up some of the aliens. Yesterday, about 50 or 60 buses took aliens from the Darien Gap up to Costa Rica. So in the past, you might get a few hundred people a day. Right now, sometimes 5,000 and 6,000 a day. And one camp that we were in yesterday was more than 4,000 just in that camp. And that's called Las Blancas. And that doesn't include this camp here, which is San Vicente. But again, there's many other camps. There's an old military adage that says, never let them build camps because they never go away. Actually, a retired colonel just sent me that about an hour ago when I was out in the jungle. And you may have heard over the years. And it's true. And not only are they building the camps, they're increasing the size here. And it's with U.S. money. Our flags are in these camps. When I say our flags, they're not flying, but they have painted flags. Our flags are in this camp right here, San Vicente camp. You know,
So
and
these camps,
the embassy comes down here. Go ahead, sir.
yeah, no. The embassy comes down there, and the U.S. tax dollars are going to fund these camps, and you're seeing an explosion of people coming through this area that are heading up to the United States. So where are they coming from? Where are these individuals coming from? And who's down there doing this work to build these new camps?
At least 140 countries are coming through the Darien Gap. And again, that traffic here is highway right there, just like
That's Highway 1 right there. So
away.
the people traveling right along that highway straight to the United States.
That's right. I would walk out there, but I might lose signal. But that's Highway 1. And so you can, Pan American Highway, right? That's the main artery to the United States right there. And Panama is only increasing, and the flows are increasing. Right now, they're beginning to break ground on another jungle camp. And, you know, there's an old military saying is never let them establish camps. When they establish camps, that's it. They never go away, right? Right now, I'm seeing huge amounts of Venezuelans. It's like every barrio in Venezuela seems to be dumping out. And a lot of, did you see those photos I put up yesterday? The guy with the AK-47, that dude, you know, his whole face is tatted up. His whole body's tatted up. You know, and he's, you know, acting like a gangster. And the whole camps are filled with people like that. Not that all of them in the camps are like that. They're not. Many of them are actually children and that sort of thing. But there are a lot of very clear gangsters and a lot of people with obvious mental illness. Like, for instance, I just left the jungle to come back here so I could get signal and come on with you. And there was one of the migrant women, clearly crazy as it gets, was just stripping down and going into the river, singing loudly and just, you know, flailing around, like, you know. So, I mean, it is quite serious out there. In fact, the people that they went out in the jungle with today, we just had breakfast with them. They are the Centerfront, Panamanian Centerfront is sort of like their border patrol / army / police. It's like there's no equivalent in the United States. In fact, there's one right there. They're very professional. These guys are super professional. So they got into that firefight that last time that Ben and Oscar went into the jungle and smoked a couple of the guys and that sort of thing. But everything was fine. And you know, they're very good at their jobs, but they're overwhelmed. And so the Centerfront's like, you know, we don't have enough people. We got a lot of jungle, and we're just being overwhelmed. The Panamanian government is at wit's end. They say they can't stop people coming through, but we actually know during the pandemic they did stop it. I mean, there was nobody in this camp during the pandemic. And so, I mean, they just stopped it like a water spigot.
So they're getting
the
full
United States
support from the
government
United
is pushing them
States.
through.
They're getting full support from the United States to keep it flowing and to keep these buses running. How many buses would you say you're seeing on a daily basis that are filled with illegal immigrants that are being bussed up to the United States?
A Centerfront lady yesterday told us about 60 went yesterday, so about 60 yesterday.
Jeez.
Yeah. And these are big luxury buses. Yeah. Now, just a few months ago, it was only about, on a heavy day, about 40. So that was on a heavy day. And so she said yesterday it was about 60. And it is clearly increasing. Like, I can see the camps are growing. Like in Las Blancas camp, where I was just at this morning and yesterday, you can see that they're putting in more additions to it right now. But it's totally, Lord of the Flies. You know, Costa Rica, Panama is being destabilized as well. So this is a big deal. I mean, Panama is important to the United States, not to mention important for Panama and a lot of the rest of the world. First of all, we got the Panama Canal here. This highway, Highway 1, goes right over the Panama Canal. So if you go on this highway, you'll end up over the Panama Canal. So this is this highway is an artery to the United States, as is the Panama Canal, obviously, for our trade and our Navy going back and forth between the Pacific and the Atlantic. And right now I think I hear some thunder. This is the rainforest. So and actually there's some big water problems here now. As you may have seen, a lot of ships are backed up because they can't get through the canal, not enough water. That's a separate issue. But the bottom line is Panama is a very strategic place. That's why I spend so much time in Panama and so much time. I've probably spent 6 months here since Biden was installed, right? And I keep going back and forth between places like Netherlands and Japan and just keep vital terrain for what's happening with the World Economic Forum and the Chinese Communist Party and others. There's Chinese everywhere. This camp right here, San Vicente, has got, I don't know how many Chinese in it right now, but hundreds.
Wow.
Often they stay in this hotel, but they're often in this hotel with me, but they're not here right now. Actually.
What about the health concerns? Of course, you were texting me just the other day about some of the outbreaks of different diseases and viruses that the Panamanian government are seeing there. Can you talk about that? And of course, that is coming through Panama, then right into the United States as well, is it not?
Yeah. In fact, there's encephalitis now here and malaria. Now, this is place. There's always been malaria here. This is Panama, famous for yellow fever and malaria and that sort of thing. But actually, the malaria outbreaks are much more intense now than they've been in recent times. And it's actually for those malaria experts out there. I know there's not many, but there are some. This is the falciparum type, or that's one of the types here, Vivex and falciparum. And obviously, that's a pretty big deal. The falciparum, Plasmodium falciparum, is the one that really knocks people flat and kills a lot, right? There's different types of malaria, and just like there's different types of almost every disease in the world, that comes in, whether it's a virus or a bacteria or whatever, or in this case, anyway, not to go into
Yeah.
And by the way, malaria. This whole canal was very difficult to build because of the mosquitoes, right? Now, we didn't know that mosquitoes were the big vector for things like yellow fever and malaria for years. In fact, the name malaria comes from Latin, meaning bad air. The doctors for centuries thought that malaria came from the putrid smelling air. So that's how it got the name malaria. And so anyway, it's not, but often where the mosquitoes grow is where the air happens to stink, in those swamplands and that sort of thing.
Are you seeing any U.S. officials that from the embassy or otherwise that have been coming through that area saying we need to stop this?
No, it's the opposite. I mean, our embassy is in the neck deep in pushing this. I mean, our ambassador was at this camp with Mayorkas, with Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas. They both came together. They came on the same three Blackhawks, right? So I mean, this is a full government approach to destroying the United States. And I'm not jumping out of the Overton window, I hope, in saying that, because it's quite obvious what's happening. It's quite obvious that, for instance, what's happening in New York. Some of us have been warning about this for years, and I know we sounded like loons. We get it. But this is what's happening. I remember with the Iraq Civil War, I was the first one that just kept saying over and over and over, month after month, this is a civil war. It was politically very inexpedient to talk about that in early 2005, right? And finally, by mid-2006, people started saying, actually, there is a civil war. Well, it was a big deal because you treat a civil war differently than you treat insurgency or whatever. There's different types of wars, just like there's different types of diseases, and you treat them differently, right? And so it was very important to call it what it was. This is a straight up invasion of the United States. It's happening in Europe. Europe is overwhelmed. Like Luxembourg, I spent, almost a couple of weeks there last year, and it's about almost 50%, not 15, almost 50% migrants in Luxembourg now. Used to be the jewel of Europe. Luxembourg, first time I went there was when I was in the Army, actually doing training. And it was, I couldn't believe it. It was such a nice, beautiful place. Now, there's no way you would take your family there and let them run around alone, or even with you. I mean, it would be dangerous. Yeah, in Luxembourg City, that used to be the jewel of Europe.
Well, now this is what's happening in the United States, and you're hearing from Mayor Adams and others that they are in a crisis right now, and it starts right there in Panama. So you're going to be down there for quite a while, tracking what's happening right now with this influx. We thought it might get better. We thought it might actually improve since your last visit there, and it's only gotten worse. So, Michael, what's on your agenda over the next few days down there?
I thought it was. You never heard me say I thought this was going to improve. I'm watching.
No, I think I'm just a hopeful. I think I'm just a hopeful person. I thought, well, maybe the Panamanian government will step up. They're seeing this health crisis. They're seeing the national media. They're seeing a lot of the media attention on the Darien Gap now. That all of these migrants are flowing right through this area. There's a renewed awareness about it. But instead, the opposite has happened. They're building a new camp.
Listen, I'll go on record right now and say, and again, I've said this with you before, Clayton. Go back and just throw a dart at previous things that I've written, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and see how they played out, right? I know they sound crazy at times. However, put this on your calendar. 2024, I will be very surprised if fewer than 1 million people come right up this highway right here, Highway 1. I'll be very surprised if fewer than 1 million come up. Right, last month it was 82,000, right? And that's rainy season. This is the season when usually it kind of trickles off. It's not. The routes through the jungle, they're still, people are dying right now. As we speak, there's people dying in that jungle, and they will be dead within the next few hours. And it's just like leaves falling off the tree in the fall. And there's so many deaths out there. In fact, when Oscar and Ben, we just put them off into the Piraguas, which is the dugout canoes with the center front, which is like the Border Patrol. Their mission probably is going to end up getting cut short because they're going to probably cut bodies, and the center has to recover the bodies, right? If it doesn't get cut short by running across bodies, then they'll come out in about 4 days, and then we're going to go right back into the jungle with them, actually. But it's just, I'm watching the inputs. I'm watching gas supplies and nitrogenous fertilizers. So I'm watching this in the context of a global view, right? And from a global view, the human osmotic pressure, the HOP, is clearly increasing. Some of that's organic, some of it's intentional by World Economic Forum, CCP, and others. And the bottom line is, this place, Panama, will be lucky to survive. Because listen, if Nicaragua shuts the border, or Costa Rica, because Panama has borders with Colombia and Costa Rica, right? But Costa Rica borders Panama and Nicaragua, right? If Nicaragua closes the border, then Costa Rica is going to close the border, and then this place will just fill up, right? And then this place will, I'm telling you, it won't survive in the form that it's in now. There's no way. There's too many other pressures going on, right? And so weaponized migration is an old tactic, an old strategy as well. And that's what's happening. It's weaponized migration. When I say weaponized migration, it doesn't mean you necessarily come in with weapons. It means you just come in, like the Goths in Rome, right? Just show up and be there. And again, the people coming through, these are not like physicists and engineers and that sort of thing. If there are, those are sprinkles. What you're mostly getting is clearly barrio people. You'll come down and see it. I'll take you out there. It's pretty unbelievable.
Well, Michael Yon in the jungle or near the jungle, about to head back into the Panamanian jungle. He's going to have a Starlink set up, so he'll be able to report from the jungle, and we will bring you those reports over the coming days. Michael, we're excited about that. Thank you for shining a light on a story that no one else is really covering, but you're doing an amazing job. And we're glad that we can able to give voice here on the show about where this starts, where this flows from Panama all the way up to the United States, covering both sides of it. Michael, thanks so much for joining us, as always.
Okay? Huh?
I don't remember looking this yucky.
Yeah. There's just more people now.
Pregúntale. Me colabora, amigo, para...
We're going to walk across and look.
This is Panama here.
That street right there is Panama. Yeah.
We can't go over there.
I want you to stand right here. I'll do a video down here.
Gracias a Dios por todo.
See all the trucks lined up. Coming this way. That's in Panama. Coming from right here. Here. Coming through here. Back through here. This way, straight through that.
This isn't the way we came.
I know, but that's heading for our car.
This is?
Yes. This is the check-in at the border for Panama. Migration windows.
What?
I said that's the migration windows. We used to have to go through migration.
That's right.
Okay, head toward the, stay next to the green things, the shields. Just get up to them. Okay, cross over to the left, be careful. This way. What's this?
All these people with the masks, they don't want
Hola, amigo. Habla English. Here, de Costa Rica, residencia. New video. Reporter. Is mucho migration ahí? And they come through very slowly or at one time? Through here?
Un autobús.
Yes.
Llega a un lugar, le dan un descanso y después lo mandan a la frontera.
Okay.
Con Nicaragua.
Okay, Nicaragua.
Sí.
Okay. Thank you, amigo.
mucho trabajo for you.
Pura vida.
For you.
Let's go this way. Let's go. It's kind of confusing around here. Hey, we're back at the
We're back in Costa
back
Rica.
at the car.
In Costa Rica.
We just walked over in Nicaragua and circled around. Now we're back at the car.
You mean a Panama?
Yeah, Panama. Oh my goodness gracious. Hola, amigo.
Buenas.
Come on.
Está grabando. Está grabando.
What? Here, Betty. Hold it.
What do you want?
No habla
De
español.
Venezuela por el Dairén, el tapón del Dairén.
No habla español.
Ah, español, no fala español.
No, me español malo.
Ah.
Poquito.
Ah,
¿Dónde? Where are you from?
Venezuela.
Venezuela.
País de Venezuela.
Okay.
Andamos pidiendo ayuda para ir para Estados Unidos, vamos para Nicaragua, voy para el hospital.
¿Sí?
Voy para el hospital, he llevado a crianza para el hospital porque están malos enfermos, pidiendo una ayuda para
Okay.
las crianzas.
Este restaurante.
A
The restaurante. Restaurante.
¿No tienen ayuda ustedes?
No? Este
No.
restaurante.
Ah,
Restaurante.
Okay.
ya. Obrigado.
Buenas. So why are they roaming around here?
Because they came from Venezuela and they're walking and they don't have anything to drink and they want something to drink and unless we could give them something to drink.
On October 6, 2023, Tico Times reported. Following bilateral talks on Friday between Presidents Rodrigo Chavez of Costa Rica and Laurentino Cortizo of Panama, the two nations have announced a joint agreement to provide direct bus transport for migrants traveling northwards. The plan aims to swiftly move migrants from the Darien region of Panama to Costa Rica's border with Nicaragua. Under the deal, approximately 200 passenger buses will be made available to transfer migrants directly from Darien to Costa Rica's Migrant Attention Center, known as CATM. After being briefly processed at CATM, the migrants will promptly board buses again for the Costa Rica-Nicaragua border crossing at Peñas Blancas. The goal for Costa Rica is for citizens to barely notice these migrant movements. "We don't want tents lining our streets," affirmed President Chavez during the summit with his Panamanian counterpart. Currently, migrants pay $40 to travel from the Las Blancas community in Darien to reach the Costa Rican frontier. The new state-sponsored bus transport will cover this leg of their journey, with migrants then paying an additional fare to arrive at Peñas Blancas under safe and formal transit. The aim is for them to stay at Catam for the shortest time possible. They won't leave the center, only undergo quick processing and continue paying to reach Peñas Blancas, Chavez elaborated. Officials estimate the buses could relocate around 3,000 migrants daily from Panama to the Nicaraguan border. This controlled transfer would provide order and prevent migrants from being stranded in Costa Rican towns. While details are pending, the buses will be supplied jointly between both countries and include licensed drivers and full insurance coverage. The Costa Rican government emphasized that establishing protected transit for migrants can prevent humanitarian issues and minimize disruptions to local communities. Both Presidents Chavez and Cortizo called for collaborative solutions between all nations involved in mass migration flows, including Venezuela, Ecuador, Colombia, Mexico and the United States. Mexico has proposed a multi-country summit on October 22 to address the crisis, a notion supported by Costa Rica and Panama. "Mexico is leading this, and we strongly endorse backing such a conference without excluding any country," commented President Cortizo on Friday. Chavez concurred, stating, "All implicated nations must take part to reach concrete, immediate answers." The Costa Rican leader visited Panama last Thursday, meeting President Cortizo to discuss bilateral strategies the next day. Chavez toured Darien by air to observe key migrant crossing points and visited a transit camp at Las Blancas. The ability to provide safe, orderly transport to relocate migrants could provide critical relief for both Costa Rica and Panama. While details are still unconfirmed, the busing agreement represents a coordinated attempt to address an issue overwhelming much of the region. The big humanitarian question is, as Tim Ballard from Sound of Freedom stated in the congressional hearing, is it humane to place these poor migrants with their children into the hands of the mafia drug cartels at the Texas border, where they are used in slave labor and their children are sold as a commodity as unregistered unaccounted children into satanic rape, sex trade and organ harvesting that's more profitable for the cartels than the drug trade? There is no love and hope in America. In the name of Jesus and God, why send them there to be harvested like cattle?